Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Dynes Sports YouTube page and podcast network. Today we are going to be sitting down with Matt Bennett from the Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, and we're going to be dissecting sort of his journey through the sports business field and how he's gotten to the point in the career that he is now. He is currently the Director of Corporate Partnerships over at OSEG, and he actually started out as an intern way back in the day with the Ottawa Senators there, and has held a wide variety of positions within the sports industry, and at every level has essentially just kept moving one rung up the ladder to get to the point where he is now, and actually in the director's position with a major sports organization that looks after CFL brands, OHL brands, all of that good stuff. So definitely a very cool journey. And we also discuss as well, obviously the sports world is a little bit on its head right now with the pandemic, and we've got some bubbles going on down south of the border and in the NHL north of the border here as well too. But we try and talk a little bit about what the future might hold for that sort of in-game experience for the fans there, and what some of the cool things they're working on for 2021 are, because obviously someone's got to pay the bills and all these athletes' salaries, and a lot of that falls to the sales departments of these major franchises there. So they've definitely had to get creative in terms of continuing to bring in revenue, continuing to engage with fans, and still trying to remain relevant during a time where the entire CFL season was canceled, OHL playoffs were canceled, the 67s were poised for a deep run there. So they've had to pivot and make quite a few changes along the way. So definitely cool to hear what they've been working on. So without further ado, let's get right into it here. Matt Bennett. All right, and joining us today is Matt Bennett of the OSEG Group. He is actually the Director of Corporate Partnerships at OSEG. Matt, how are you doing, sir?
I'm good, Kyle. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, You guys surviving over there with the family and the little ones?
Yeah, it's a bit of Groundhog Day, but we're doing okay now that the kids are back in school. I think it's far more productive when you're just stressing out about work and not work and chasing after a couple kids. But I know you know that, and things are going well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, for those that are going to be watching this on our YouTube page there, that it's a very colorfully decorated office you've got in the background there.
Yes, this is the former kids' playroom, almost a full home office. My finger painting here over my shoulder as I look to expand my skill set. But yeah, no, we've almost finished the conversion here. So
yeah. So I mean, is it fair to assume that, like most people in the sports business world there, that you grew up playing a wide variety of sports as a kid yourself?
Yeah, I think for sure. I think any kid that grows up, specifically playing in Canada, like I did in the early to mid 80s, I'll definitely date myself. Everybody was playing road hockey. I think and you can appreciate this, with kids yourself, our parents would kind of let us go on a weekend and we would come back 8 hours later, hockey sticks on our, over our shoulder, and away we went. And nobody really looking for you or chasing you down, and you were left to your own devices. And then for me, it was always sports in the neighborhood with buddies and then an organized sports along the way. But like many of us that work on the business side of sport, at some point we realized that our dreams of playing on TV weren't going to happen. So we started focusing on the other side of the industry.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say there, if you're anything like me there, you probably reached a certain point where, okay, suddenly, being 5'2", and 100 pounds soaking wet there in the 7th and 8th grade, probably wasn't making the NBA or NHL or anything like that anytime soon.
That's right. Agreed. Yeah. No, it was very early on. That realization was very early on in my quote unquote sporting career. So, but nothing to complain about.
Yeah. Was there sort of a moment that you remember the switch going off, though, as far as, okay, I'm not going to play professionally, but, I would still like to have a career, obviously, in sports there. And, you started actually getting interested in the sports business side and looking into whether it was post-secondary opportunities or whatever. Do you remember a sort of moment there?
Well, I think for me, I was always the kid, on the floor reading, and obviously dating ourselves again, but reading the box scores, reading the newspaper every day, and really interested in the stats part of it. And that, I think just kind of led, was just that kind of obsession with all things sports from, kind of that aha moment of when, I thought actually studying, the business of sport really wasn't until I think literally the day before or the day of applications being due in high school for university. And I remember, everybody would have the old school, like, university calendars out and you're flipping through courses. And I just happened to come across the sport management program at Brock. And so reading about the courses and, some of the careers, that was for me, like, the first time I can remember going, man, you can actually, there's people studying this. There's, people that are having careers on this side of the industry. And that for me was for sure the beginning.
Yeah. And, we'll leave out maybe some of the party stories and all that here, but, during your time at university there, what were some of the real big takeaways that you did take from, your first couple of years at Brock during their sports management program?
I think first and foremost, it was the depth and the connectivity with the faculty to the industry. And I think now that is even, it's tenfold. When you look at the alumni that have come through that program now, obviously Kyle Dubas is, he's kind of the poster boy now for the program, but Andrew Tinish before him, who was, assistant GM at the Jays, and, lots of people that have come through and worked for Vanoc and other programs. It was, and connecting those people, 1 degree of separation to the student through alumni day and panels and those sort of things. So that was really evident right away. And the opportunity to get your hands dirty and get some real world experience through volunteering was also evident. Every year we would bus students up to Toronto for Vanier Cup, OUA championships, all of those sort of experiences that, really when you're in university and you're working part-time, you don't have the opportunity, or at least I didn't have the opportunity to, take summer internships and those sort of things. I was back home, working whatever landscaping job or, serving or bartending to help pay for school. So those sort of volunteer opportunities were tremendous. And I think Brock really set us up for kind of that next step and kept us, as students, kept us connected. And I thoroughly enjoyed Brock and down in Niagara.
Yeah. And, while you were there, were you trying to sort of branch out and experience every little thing, or were you like, okay, you know what, there's 1 or 2 sports that I feel are more my cup of tea, I'm going to sort of gravitate towards them? What was your sort of approach to the whole program?
Well, it's funny because I've had this conversation with students at Alumni Day and that, and I'd say over the last 5 or 6 years, in the first year seminar, you go around the table, right? And what do you want? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, now it's everybody wants to work in analytics or hockey, wants to work on the hockey ops side. For me, starting there, you went around the room and 8 out of 10 people wanted to be a sports agent, right? Jerry Maguire had come out a few years before, and everybody was just, that was, for me, going into that program, that was one of the things that I wanted to do. And I think as I look back now, a lot of the reasons why I think that was of interest to me are things that I do on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, for me, those early years, it was, marketing, partnerships, like consumer behavior, all of those things is really where my interest gravitated towards. I don't really, when I finished there, I still didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, which is why, I took a gap year and then went to grad school after that. But I think it, for me, it was definitely on, kind of on the marketing and partnership side, which is, took a bit of a road to get there, but where I am now.
Yeah. So we'll have to see what movie comes out, whether it's Jerry Maguire or Moneyball or whatever the next one that's going to shape the next generation.
That's right, for sure.
Yeah. So you just mentioned it there as well too. So took a gap year, went back to school. What was sort of the driving force as far as going back and getting your grad school diplomas and all that, rather than launching right into a career there?
Yeah, I think a little bit of was my doing, in the sense where I just didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. And let's be honest, a lot of it was kind of the nature of the industry. I had applied for a few places, and but it was a bit slim pickings when I graduated. So for me, instead of abandoning working in sport, it was okay. What can I do to set myself set myself apart from others? And I had considered teachers college, I had considered law school, and a friend of mine who I went to Brock with had gone right into doing her master's at the University of Windsor in their human kinetics program, sport management program, and after keeping in touch with her, she was raving about the program, and so went down, met the professors, toured the campus. And Windsor for sure gets some knocks on its proximity, how far it is from home, especially growing up in Ottawa. But man, if you're a sports fan, if you're a music fan, it's incredible. You're so close to Detroit. There was so much opportunity for experiential learning, and let's be honest, some fun as well in taking in games and concerts in really close proximity. So that was great. And for me, it was one more step. And I looked at it as a, 18 to 24 month process. And it was, if I do this, then if I do it right, then, hopefully it will lead to an internship, and that internship will lead to a full-time gig, which in the end it did. But it was, and it was the internship piece that really drove me to Windsor. I had gotten accepted at Western and back home in New Ottawa, but they were thesis-based programs. And for me, I just didn't know if I had, 4 more years for a PhD after that master's, and knew I wanted to jump into the industry. So Windsor was a perfect fit.
Yeah. And so, you've now graduated twice there. What was your first sort of professional gig that you got once you had your 2 very expensive pieces of paper in hand there?
Yeah. Well, I was lucky, and getting an opportunity to intern at the Sens, and as close to your heart, I know, and you getting your start at the Sensplex, that for me was fantastic. And it wasn't a posted internship. It was, and it's very cliche. My mom worked with Joanne Sexton at Queens Bay Carlton. Randy was still, he was there. The Sensplex had just opened. And it was just come in for a meeting and let's kind of chat about what you want to do and where you want to go. And that turned into an internship offer. And, as you can remember from back, when I think the full-time staff might have been 5, it was like Brad and Andy and Rod and Timmy, like there was Scotty, like there was 5 people, right? And Matty Waston, like 6, and then me. And I laugh now when I see how much staff they have now. Yes, more facilities, but it was perfect timing. It was, and it's cliche, but sometimes timing's everything. And it really allowed me to dive into, youth programs and setting up programs and running the P&Ls for them, and, getting to know those families and trying to drive revenue through the programming department, which, ended up turning into a full-time gig. They just didn't have that youth programs coordinator role based on the life cycle of where they were at. And so that, again, interning for 6 months and then sliding into essentially what I was doing as an intern, and then finally getting paid for it. That was, that was fantastic, and really lucky to be able to do that coming off of graduating from Windsor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Things have definitely changed a little bit there since back
sure.
in the day. I don't think they've got too
sure.
many 16-year-old redheads running entire tournament weekends or anything right now.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Was there anything, and I probably have some guesses to this answer here, but I'll let you answer.
Yeah. Sure.
Was there anything that really surprised you about the role once you actually did get in there and got your hands dirty, that you thought back and went, oh geez, I really didn't think like this was going to be what sort of the sports world was going to be like?
Yeah. I mean, where I'm going first, and they tell you in school, like they tell you it's going to be long hours, they tell you it's evenings and weekends, and then you get in there and it's just there's not enough hours in the day, right?
Yeah.
And whether you're putting on tournaments, whether you're running programs, I mean, we were running programs for kids during leisure time, during evenings and weekends. So it took us that, 8 to 5:30 time to prep and plan, but you still had to be there to deliver the programs, to make sure it was running smoothly, all those 4-on-4 leagues we were running and tournaments, and so that, I mean, I don't know if it was much surprise as it was the hit of reality, right? That this is, if you want to make it in this industry, you're gonna have to work hard, and there's no tapping out, right? And I look back to that group of people that were, and some people came and went, and those were the people that, I look at Scott Lork, who's managing Minto now, and Matt Wason, who's now at, was at the foundation, or the Sens Foundation, is now at Carleton. I thought I worked long hours. Those guys were working crazy hours, on the tournament side, but they're still successful in what they're doing. And I think that just instilled in me, I'd always consider myself a hard worker, but it was, you got to put in the time, and you got to be as, the most prepared person in the room. And that hasn't changed from whatever role I've been in. But that was the kind of the shock and awe of those first bout of summer camps, and you're there at 4:45 and you're home at maybe 7:30, and you do that for 6 straight. And no, I wouldn't. I don't regret it. I wouldn't change a thing, because those were some of, by far, my most enjoyable moments I've had in my career, for sure.
Yeah. They don't tell you that bringing your sleeping bag and pillow is a requirement of the job.
That's it. If they only knew how many times we slept on that boardroom table. I don't know if there's a health and safety regulation against that, but especially right now, I don't think there's a COVID violation of COVID protocol, for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've sort of done the grand tour of duty as far as Ottawa sports scene here, right? You've gone from working with the Senators to now OSEG, and not necessarily comparing the organizations, but just sort of their fundamental structures here. Was there much of a difference going from, working for the Senators, where everything is hockey,
Mm-hmm.
to an OSEG-like foundation where it's, you've got hockey, they had soccer, they've got the CFL, they've got all these sort of tent poles all under one roof there?
No, it definitely different. And for sure, I look at everything as a stepping stone, and in the Sens, I learned so much going from Sensplex to Bell Cup to into sales, and working for some great people, and wouldn't trade those years at all. I mean, I essentially grew up, personally and professionally at the Sens over a 9-year span. But when I first met, my now SVP, Adrian Sierra, we were both doing the same panel at Algonquin Sport Business Management Day. And as we had a coffee, and, he starts telling me about, OSEG and what their mandates are. It's fascinating. And it's really the chance to be a part of multiple brands was really appealing. And, at the time, again, a bit of a perfect storm timing wise. It hadn't been announced yet, but, we had been promised the Grey Cup. So that was coming. So that was essentially, a fourth team at the time, and then Panda Game and all of these other things that you hear about, you see, but to be able to work with different groups of people and different groups on multiple brands, it's been really unique. I mean, we get asked that question a lot. Like, is there multiple teams for each, or excuse me, multiple departments for each team? And it's a one team, one human resource group for all of those brands, and that poses its challenges, but I think it keeps us all on our toes, notably on sales cycles, right? In our world, when you're driving revenue at the Sens, there is a very clear delineation between in season and off season, and what that sales cycle looked like. And at OSEG, you just throw that right out the window, because Chris Atack or the ticketing guys would tell you the same thing. You're constantly in market, in conversation with a brand, which I also think is a bit of our secret weapon, is that it's a 12-month touch point plan with our fan base for brands. So that's I think one of the reasons why we've been successful on both the ticketing and sponsorship.
And you've said it already a few times here in a few of your answers there. Sales is such a huge part of any professional organization
Yep.
in the sports management world there. What kind of characteristics do you need to have to be successful in sales when it does come to whether it's, ticket sales or selling
Yep.
those suites or even sponsorships along
Yeah.
the boards? What sort of
Yeah.
characteristics?
I think it's, at the end of the day, to me, if you had asked me, two or three things, I think it's grit and resiliency. I think that really is at the core, at the foundation. If you look at, I mean, and that could be applied to any function of or any business, right? Like those that work hard and those that will, be resilient in the toughest of times. I look at the team that we've got right now as we still try to drive revenue and add value to partners through COVID. That's at the forefront. I think at the end of the day, as well, the most authentic people are the ones that are by far the most successful in sales. They may not be the smartest or know the most about sports or the most about sales or but they're just authentic. And it's like if you walk in to buy a car or you're at Home Depot, wherever you are, you like buying things off of nice people and people that treat you with respect and are of high integrity. So if you're the BS meter is usually pretty easy. Like people can smell that off you. And so if you're disingenuous and, you don't handle yourself with a high level of integrity, it shows. And I think for those people that are truly authentic to themselves, they are the ones that find themselves in really cutting out a great niche for them on the sales side of, and to your point on whether it's ticket sales or even, like selling youth programs at the Sensplex or whatever, if you're trying to get somebody's disposable income or, corporate dollars, I think authenticity is at the height of it for sure.
Yeah. Outside of being a good salesman, though, are there any, trends that you can sort of point to or sort of in-demand skills that you've seen emerge
Yeah.
over the last couple of years that, OSEG has been looking for?
I think, over the couple of years or even just, especially now, I would say over the last 6 to 8 months, I think the more well-rounded you are, the more useful you are to an organization. Your ability to be nimble, your ability to be adaptable to the environment, both internally and externally. And I think one thing too, and again, not to discredit my first answer to this or second answer to this conversation, but there's more people that are taking unorthodox paths to working in sports specifically. So, for the longest time, there's this window of, sport management undergrad, sport management grad program, internship into sport. And I think, you definitely need to know there's a nuance, like any industry, there's a nuance to selling sport properties. But having a varied background and getting there in a roundabout way and bringing a different lens or different point of view from whether it's the radio industry or media industry or music or hospitality. Like I think there's more appetite and I think you just add to the organization if you're coming from a different industry. So that's one trend, and I think the other one is just your knowledge base and your ability to leverage technology for to drive revenue, if specifically on on the sales side of things. Just and it's no surprise, but partners and especially on the sponsorship side, everybody is looking for data and metrics around driving ROI and driving value for their investment. So the more well versed you are in things like broadcast valuations and social and digital valuations and turning that data into sound bites that help drive revenue, that's a skill set that and to be honest, there's not a fan avidity course in university or a broadcast valuation course in university. So you've got to learn on the fly and kind of learn at your own discretion. So candidates that can come into the industry with that knowledge and they would set themselves apart for sure on the
Yeah,
side.
yeah. And I mean, speaking of revenue, there obviously one huge factor in revenue in 2020 has been obviously COVID has disrupted everything,
Yeah,
right? And,
for sure. Yep.
OHL playoffs got wiped out, your CFL
Yep.
season got wiped out.
Yep.
Is there anything that you guys are either currently doing or have planned that's coming up to try and keep
Yep.
fans, keep season ticket holders, keep those business partners engaged? Like, what have you been doing to sort of stay creative and keep those touch points going?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. And I think the disrupt is by far the right word. And we since mid March, our sponsorship group has really been trying to solve how do we stay relevant as a brand, and working with our marketing group and our foundation and the ticketing guys, like how do we stay relevant as the Red Black, as OSEG? How do we stay connected to our fans? And for us, we want to find a way at the same time to keep our partners relevant, keep our partners connected, and to drive value for investment. We're a business. We are in a tough spot right now, and so driving revenue amidst the pandemic is still top of mind for us. So we have launched 2 weeks ago. We launched the Our Nation Corporate Heroes program, which for us is a way to elevate partners that are sticking with us through the toughest of times, and elevate them into this almost band of brothers type mentality where we're going to drive value through social and digital programs, some community initiatives. We're working on some programs with Janice Baresi and our foundation. You'll see some different branding going up in and around Lansdowne, and that program for us is really that's the catalyst for driving revenue now in 2020. And so that's been a lot of our focus. I think also, as we start to, as the calendar gets closer and closer to the end of the year, we're going to have to start thinking on how do we drive value in, kind of in this whole new world, even when fans come back. So a lot of our time is also being spent on, industry best practices. What are we seeing, from around the world? New Zealand has had low cases. They've had fans in the stands for quite a long time. Some other places over in Europe and Asia. So what are they doing? How are they, driving value for partners and season ticket holders? And, we're kind of back to university. It's kind of, it's kind of sponsorship 101 all over again amidst this pandemic. But we're really bullish on this Corporate Heroes program, and the response has been really great from our partners, and we're hoping that kind of carries us into.
Yeah. And I mean, no one's going to hold you to any of these predictions here, because obviously things change on a daily, if not weekly, basis here. But if you had to give your best guess as to what sports in 2021 are going to look like, what are you sort of leaning towards? Is it going to be the limited capacity, whatever, 25% in the stadiums? Is it all going to be virtual? Are you guys going to start moving towards some of the the things that the Raptors were doing with selling the virtual fan licenses and all of that there? What do you see happening?
As the guy who has revenue counted on it, I want to tell you there's 25,000 fans in TD Place next June for the home opener. No, I mean, in all seriousness, and it's such a, we ask ourselves this question every day, every week, and every, business recovery meeting and strategic meeting. And the real answer is just, we don't know. There are so many, this pandemic changes every day and every week. And sometimes it's, hey, we're trending really well, and we're seeing things in the industry and both on, from a sporting industry perspective, as well as from a public health perspective, that, if you extrapolate that out, okay, hey, maybe we can have, 15 to 20,000 fans in our stadium next June. But it's such a long time away. I mean, that's our hope. I think it would be unrealistic to expect full stadiums across, Canada or North America. I just don't know if we have enough runway, or, and even if people, it's not so much, just because we open our doors, and even if you had, the best team in the league, are people ready? Are you and your wife ready to bring the kids to a game? Like, my answer might be yes, but I think for a lot of people, the answer is, I'm not sure. Or, I want to see what the safety protocols are going to be when we go back. So that's really where, it's a hard time planning on hypotheticals. So, but we're doing our best, and we're trying to ensure that we're ready for when we can get fans back in our arena and in our football stadium. We have the safest environment possible, without sacrificing, some of the great traditions and elements that make, going to a Red Blacks game the best, party in the city and the best sporting event in the city. Like, and same with, you alluded to it earlier, the 67s, playoff run like that. It's been a long time since, that barn felt like it did, in 2019 for their playoff run. And we were really stoked to have, a deep playoff run this year. And we can't wait. We're hopeful that, in the spring of 2021, we can get back to a playoff atmosphere. And we'll be ready from a health and safety perspective. But yeah, I think it's really hard. And, you read every day, you're reading something different that tells you it's going to be full stadiums. And then the next article you read will say it's all virtual still. So hopefully it's something in the middle that, and we'll continue to trend positive.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's take our doom and gloom hats off for a second here, and pandemic aside, has
Yes.
there been anything that you've seen, whether it's you going to a different team stadium or traveling, or even just sort of seeing online or whatever, as far as really cool either game day experiences or ways to engage the community or corporate things or anything like that, that you're excited about either bringing to Ottawa or would like to one day sort of see Ottawa get to that level there? Has there been anything like that that sort of piqued your interest?
Yeah, I think, I've kind of, rewind to kind of pre-pandemic, let's call it, and kind of where we were going. And I think the biggest trend that I've seen, and it'd be no surprise, to those that follow the industry closely, is the pivot away from traditional full season tickets and just fans sitting in their seats, watching a game, having a great time, cheering, and then going home, and a move to hospitality areas and really experiential places in a stadium. So, a lot of the arenas and stadiums that, we're keeping an eye on, I've been to a few where, they're pulling out, CTC's done a really great job of pulling out suites, lowering the number of suites on demand for sale, and creating experiential spaces. Their Hard Rock space is a great example of that. And, we're looking at doing similar things. I mean, we've got, the demand for our suites are such that we can't, we need them all, but there's places in our stadium that, can we convert office space, for example, especially now, can we convert office space into a premium club area for season ticket holders and club seat owners? Can we create fun, party type platforms in the concourse? Being down in Tampa Bay's arena where the Lightning play, they've done an incredible job. They've got, Budweiser Beer Garden, a couple different large hospitality areas. I think those are the places that, when you and your buddies are on, guys' weekends or going to a game, it's way more now, I think, about hanging out with your friends and the whole experience than it is watching every play or, yes, it's fun to be there and follow along, but there's such more of a premium now put on the overall experience that you're having with the people you're there with. And that is really hard to do if you stick to the traditional model of selling a ticket to a seat. I think now it's really just, and the Oilers, I think, were the first ones to do it, when they were in the playoffs there a few years ago in their new building. They just sold tickets to the concourse. You don't even get to watch the game in a seat. You get to come in the building and watch with all of the other Oilers fans in the concourse, right? And it's extremely smart because you're generating some ticket rev, yes, at a lower yield, but they're still coming in. They're probably parking. They're buying your beer. They're buying your merchandise. It's a really great way to diversify your rev streams. And I think that's the number one trend for me that I think, and it's, curious to see how the pandemic affects it. But again, I think the need for those larger spaces and where you can, stanchion off a specific area in a stadium and let a certain amount of people in, that might be the way more than ever than putting people in seats beside each other. As you saw, the Thursday nighter in Kansas City, right? With and every stadium has done that scaling, ourselves included, right? Where 4 people on one end, 4 people on the far end, and then you alternate that pattern like a checkerboard all the way up. So yeah, I think hospitality and the experiential piece of the game day puzzle, though, that to me is the trend I think you're just going to see continue to come to the forefront.
Yeah. And, one very cool trend that we've seen, especially at Red Blacks games lately, has been long gone are the just, soggy hot dog and stale popcorn as far as food and concessions and all that.
Yes.
You guys are rolling out specialty food left, right, and center here, and, things and all of that there. Have you, poked your head into any of those meeting rooms and offered up any recipes lately, or?
None of my recipes. I just poke my head in when it's time to sample the goods before we take it to market. But no, I mean, that's, again, I think that's just when you look at, how to drive content on the back of your in-stadium experience, it's one of the best examples, right? And I think Major League Baseball, pre 2020, that, every year that was one of the best, and maybe it's clickbait, maybe it's not, but that's one of the best articles is, the latest and greatest food offering from each MLB stadium, and they're outrageous, right? And that was kind of where we were going. Our marketing group was working really closely with Compass Levy on those, and they, and that became part of our, to-do checklist before every game, and whether it was like, 2-foot tater tot, loaded potato skins or ice cream sandwiches the size of your head, people would literally come down early to grab those. And when you start doing the that analysis on per caps and those sort of KPIs, we want people at our stadium as early as possible, and that's a great way to get them down. And I think that's a smart play by our marketing group and Compass to launch those sort of.
Yeah. Well, and you touched on something there as well too, because for years the biggest knock on CTC is it's a stadium and a parking lot in the middle of nowhere, right? So how important has it been for OSEG to have their stadium, their arena, their everything located where it is downtown with all the surrounding, restaurants and things that you can do sort of pre-game, post-game, all of that. What's that relationship been like as far as, from the actual sports management side, working with all those other local restaurants and vendors and all that?
Yeah, I mean that's a game changer, right? And I'm sure if when you think back, or anybody thinks back to the the best games you've been to or the best sporting cities, it's usually a downtown stadium, a ballpark or arena, and it's some sort of place where you can get dropped off in a cab or an Uber and spend the afternoon there, right? And not have to drive around anywhere. And that was really the vision of that the redevelopment of Lansdowne by Roger Greenberg and John Ruddy and the OSEG partners. It wasn't just about hockey and football and soccer. It was about creating an entertainment hub where families can go, friends can go, date night, sport nuts, whatever it is, or Lansdowne has something for you. And I think we've really held true to that vision. And there is nothing better than a big game, kind of the mid-afternoon, patios start getting busy, the restaurants start getting busy, you go to the game. And I think what you've noticed too at Lansdowne, the diehards will stay right till the end. And the people that are there for a good time, they bail out a little early and they hit the patio, but they're still down there and it's still fun. And there's just as many people at Lansdowne. And I think, that vibe, like, during Grey Cup Festival back in 2017, the outdoor game, there's been some really special games and events and looking forward to the day, again, when we replicate that, because that like I said off the top, that's a game changer for any organization to be able to deliver that game experience, set themselves above the rest for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, looking back on it all now, if you were to give sort of one piece of advice, either to, younger you or someone who is looking to break into the sports industry as far as how to get your foot in the door, what would it be?
Yeah. to get your foot in the door, I think is two things. One is leverage the network you have in that moment. Even as a student, that starts with your network. Yes, might be small, but it could be professors, it could be classmates. We never had LinkedIn. I've said this before on in different circles. The power of LinkedIn, at the click of a button, you can connect with any CEO in any, they may not accept your connect request, but you can try. And I think that is, leverage the alumni networks in your program. I think that is for sure, as far as setting yourself up and being connected with the right people, that is by far the right way. And the second thing, and that I always say to people is, and I said it before, is be authentic. I just think it's not necessarily how many degrees you have, where you went to school, what you did, bonus marks if you went to Brock, if you're applying for a job at OSEG. But, I just think it's being authentic. It truly, that shines through. And I think even I have been guilty at times, through my career of just trying to be somebody I'm not. And it's, you realize after the fact, it's not the pathway to success. So I think it's, leverage the network you have and get out of your comfort zone, expand that network as best you can, and do it with some authenticity behind it. And I think you're off to the races as far as breaking into the sports industry.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us and walking us through your rise to fame in the sports world there.
I don't know about that. I just no, I appreciate it, man. And congrats to you. It's glad to see you doing well. It's funny, so many people. Ottawa's such a small, connected city, and when you think back to some of the roster staff at the Sensplex circa, 2007, 2008, it's great to see, some of the success stories coming out of those staff. So it's great.
Yeah. Just needs some of the former timekeepers, one of them to become mayor or something, and then we'll really
right.
get that there.
That's right, man. That's right. That's awesome.
If there is someone who wants to either learn more about OSEG or connect with you and ask a question there, what's the best way to get a hold of you or learn more about what sort of OSEG has going on?
Yeah, I to connect with me, LinkedIn is by far, the best way to connect with me, and happy to help. And, tdplace.ca has everything that you need. Follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, all of the updates, especially as we get closer to the start of hopefully, a full OHL season and getting the 67s back on the ice. All of our return to play protocols are there. And if you're thinking about coming down, all of the patios are open, restaurants are open. We've got some great shows. Trevor Noah's coming back for a couple shows in early January. We're working on some fun stuff as well with Saunders Farm in October and the Sawmill. And then the Ottawa Christmas Market's back in December, which will be here before you know it. So lots of great stuff going on at Lansdowne. It's great to see the farmers market and kind of the vibe of Lansdowne coming back to life. So tdplace.ca is where you'll find all those details, and happy to connect. If anyone has any questions on all things OSEG via LinkedIn.
All right. A huge thank you goes out to our guest today, Matt Bennett from the Ottawa Sports and Entertainment Group, for taking the time to sit down with us and walk us through his journey, as well as some of the things that they have planned for the future coming up with live sports, hopefully coming back in 2021, and whether it's going to be in person or virtual or some sort of combination thereof, I think we can all agree that we're all definitely looking forward to getting back towards sort of that live sporting experience and pre-pandemic viewing and fan experience for game days there for sure. So as always, if you like what you saw, make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. We've also got various social media channels. We'd love to connect with you guys on there too, so make sure you give a follow to @Dynes Sports on all the big major platforms there and connect with us. We've also got some giveaways, contests, all that kind of fun stuff, so make sure you get in on some of those before they start shutting down as well too. We've got some phenomenal guests coming up shortly, some of them we've been working on for a while, so I think you guys will really enjoy them, so stay tuned for some announcements. Other than that, stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.